The Read to Lead Podcast, Episode 8.
Hey, what's up? This is Pat Flynn from SmartPassiveIncome.com, the Smart Passive Income podcast, and author of the book Let Go. I so encourage you to listen to the Read to Lead podcast with Jim? Wait, is it Jim? No, Jason. Jeff Brown. Listen to Read to Lead with Jeff Brown. You will not regret it.
For the most part, people undersell what they already have. And they look at what they don't have and say, if only I had that, that would then solve my problem.
Welcome to the Read to Lead podcast with Jeff Brown. Jeff believes that if you desire to achieve true success in business and in life, then consistent and intentional reading is a must. The Read to Lead podcast will not only help you narrow this ever-important reading list, but also bring you key insights and valuable feedback from some of today's most successful and inspiring authors. And now, here's Jeff.
Thanks for coming back. The first month of the Read to Lead podcast is officially in the books, and it's gone very, very well, and I have you to thank for that. If you've reviewed the podcast, if you've rated it in iTunes, thank you very much. If you've shared it with friends, I owe a lot to you. As you know, my goal is to help you develop a more intentional and consistent reading habit, because I believe reading is essential to your success. And speaking of success, that's going to be the focus of our topic today as we talk with G. Richard Schell. He's a professor at the Wharton School, and his new book, Springboard, Launching Your Personal Search for Success, just released this past Thursday. He's going to help us answer the questions, what is success for you, and how can you achieve it? But first, this episode is brought to you by Audible. If you especially like what you hear today from Richard and his new book, Springboard, you can get it for free before this episode is even over, just by going to readtoleadpodcast.com/audible. There you can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get your very first download absolutely free. Now, this is not an offer that's available on their website. You have to go to this special URL. One more time, it's readtoleadpodcast.com/audible. Richard Schell is the Thomas Garrity Professor of Legal Studies, Business Ethics, and Management at the Wharton School. He is an acclaimed teacher and creator of Wharton's popular Success Course, and his previous books include the award-winning Bargaining for Advantage, Negotiation Strategies for Reasonable People, a mouthful, and The Art of Woo, Using Strategic Persuasion to Sell Your Ideas, a book he co-wrote. His latest book is based on that Wharton Success Course and is titled Springboard, Launching Your Personal Search for Success. And he's our guest today. Richard, welcome to the Read to Lead podcast.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be on.
Well, as I was reading the book, found your journey from your college years into your 20s and 30s quite fascinating, and I'd like you to give the Read to Lead Nation some insight into how you came to settle into your career at the ripe old age of 37.
Thanks, Jeff. One always appreciates being asked to talk about oneself, so I'll take that. My journey to my current situation was a very roundabout one, and I think for that reason, I'm a role model for anyone who thinks that they're taking a long time to get to where they need to go. Just needs to see how long it took me to get where I am. I was born into a military family. My father was a general in the United States Marine Corps. My grandfather was an officer in the Army on his side, and in the Navy on my mother's side. I was destined to be a military officer, and I started college on a Navy scholarship. And I'm of the generation that confronted the Vietnam War. And as my college years progressed and the Vietnam War escalated, I became more and more inclined to think that we were not doing the right thing in that war and that we oughtn't to be there. And that created quite a crisis for me personally, because I was on a Navy scholarship, and also within my family because my whole family tradition had been military straight through. And here I was standing up and saying, we ought to do it a different way. So I ended up becoming a pacifist, a Vietnam War protester. I had a severe break with my family over that, and I think this can happen to people that, for many reasons, and for lots of different stages of their life. It can happen if you're divorced or if you have a career break. when you no longer wake up recognizing who you are, then you are experiencing what I experienced. The narrative thread of my life had been cut by my dispute over this tragic war that we were in, and I just found myself flapping and very unable to organize my thoughts about the future. So that crisis led me to a long journey, and it included working in the ghettos of Washington, D.C. as a social worker. It included traveling around the world for several years and investigating lots of different aspects of religion, and it was a long and very difficult period of my life. But at the end, it's a happy ending. At the end, I managed to put myself back together again. I reconciled with my family. I actually lived in their basement when I was in my 30s in a small town in Virginia, and they welcomed me home. I was a prodigal son. And so I ended up getting to know both my parents much more intimately as a result of all that than I probably had ever known them before. And then I just gradually started doing what I talk about in the book, which is trying to investigate what I could do well or better than most, and following some career tracks that would emphasize those skills, and then finding my way one step at a time to a teaching career, which is what I entered into when I was 37 here at the University of Pennsylvania in the Wharton School of Business. And I've been here ever since, and gradually making the situation here into one where I could teach what I'm now writing about. And that's really about things that mean a lot to me. What is meaningful work? How can you define success for yourself? How can you mentor others in helping them achieve what they think success might mean for them? And so it's been a long journey. My first books, as you mentioned, are about persuasion and negotiation, both very important skills and tools in negotiation in business and in life. This book is a prequel to those two books. This is a book about setting the right life goals, so that when you negotiate and persuade, you're advancing toward the goals that you most believe in.
What I love is that even though we're not students at the Wharton School, we get to kind of take the class by following along in this book. As for the book, which I love, share first how you've chosen to break it up, the two key questions that must be answered.
It's I see my calling as a teacher. And I'd reached a point in my career of having taught for quite a while, and then given the degree of freedom to create a course. And I asked myself, what's the perfect course that I could teach? And I came up with this sort of life goals kind of subject matter. But then I thought, what's the best way to help people get at this subject in a way that would be unique for each of them? Because I don't believe anyone should follow my path, and I don't believe anyone has the right to hold themselves up as some sort of supermodel that other people ought to follow. I think it's our job to help others come to terms with their own lives. And so the two questions that I ended up settling on as the best way to evoke the best kind of thinking on what your future ought to be are these. First, what for me is success? What do I mean by that word? And then secondly, once you've come to some thoughts about that, what is my unique best way to achieve it? And so those two questions are the questions I challenge my students with from the first class to the last, and that's what I challenge the reader to think about from the first to the last chapter. The first half of the book is devoted to helping them think about this question, what is success? What does it mean? Could it be happiness? Could it be status? Could it be fame? Could it be fortune? And then the second half of the book is helping them think with some ideas about what their goals might be. What are some unique ways that I could achieve those goals using my strengths and talents? So the second half asks questions like, what do I do better than most? How can I learn to fail? which is really a chapter on how to find self-confidence, and what are my social skills and how can I advance my ideas using other people as part of the team that I want to assemble.
Starting with the end in mind in that first half, right? Because only if we know what success is for us can we begin to build goals around that, and then understanding better how to make progress toward them is the second half.
Exactly.
Well, I had a lot of eye-opening moments reading this book. One of them was early on when you lay out the 6 lives exercise in Chapter 1. Describe what that is and what it's designed to do, and the balance you have to strike between the two sides of success.
Sure. This is a classroom exercise, but it's really easy to take, and it takes about 5 minutes to do in the book. And the book is I filled the book with essentially, self-assessments and diagnostics and thought experiments that the reader can then, reflect on and take their own ideas from. So this is a little short exercise. I give 6 short profiles of 6 different people. One's a teacher, one's a finance guy making money on Wall Street. Another one is a stonemason who works as a bricklayer and stonemason. Another one is a tennis pro. And there's 6 of them. And then I ask, and they're just short vignettes, like a paragraph each. Then I ask the reader to rank them from most to least successful. Which life strikes you as the most successful, and which strikes you as the least successful? And every vignette has a little bit about what they do for work, a little bit about their family life and situation, a little bit about what their interests and passions are. So by forcing people to rank them, I'm getting people to think about how they strike the balance between the 2 big parts of success, which are internal and external. The internal side of success being happiness, fulfillment, satisfaction, family, and the outside part of success being achievement, recognition, status, accomplishments in society. And there's always a balance, and different people strike it in different places. So this little exercise gives everyone a chance to see, kind of as of today, what are they thinking about these 2 sides of success, and which ones are driving them, and which ones are they neglecting, and which ones really ought they to pay more attention to.
You talk about later on, I think it's in Chapter 2, about momentary happiness versus overall happiness, and then go on to talk about what you've dubbed wisdom experiences and the positive value of negative emotions. What are wisdom experiences, and how can negative emotions be turned to be a positive thing? Sure,
great question. Most people when they say the word happiness think of it as a sort of positive emotional state. So you feel happy, it's your birthday, and you're blowing out the candles. And that is very much an important meaning of the word happiness, but it's not the only meaning, and it's probably not the meaning that you are looking for when you think about success as an idea. So I kind of try to give people a chance to think a little more deeply about what they're trying to achieve in life when they use the word happiness. And overall happiness is a sort of retrospective look. If you lived in San Francisco for 5 years and then moved to New York, and someone asked you, were you happy in San Francisco? That would be an assessment of sort of overall happiness in San Francisco. It's partly emotional, it's partly mixed up with a lot of different things that might have happened there, but you sort of have a plus or a minus. And that's a very important dimension of happiness because it summarizes a lot of experience in a single perception. The wisdom experiences, though, are, I think, the most important kinds of happiness. And the difference with a wisdom experience as a form of happiness is it's the difference between feeling happy blowing out the candles on your birthday cake and feeling happy at the birth of your first child. The kind of experience I'm talking about there is something that you feel connection with the circle of life or with nature or with a divine spirit or something beyond yourself that fills you with a sense of joy, of integration, of love. And that's the kind of happiness I think that is the most important of all when you're talking about a word like success. Because I think if you have a life that lacks any of that, I think the success you're achieving is probably only one-dimensional. I think it's probably going to be almost entirely in the achievement side, and the internal side has been somehow neglected. So the third kind of happiness is the deepest form, I think, and I think it's something that most of us need to pay more attention to and appreciate more.
I love the simple but yet profound lottery exercise in Chapter 3. Share a bit about how we come to have these unconscious assumptions about success and what those assumptions are likely to be based on.
Sure. I think when I teach about success, this is often a real eye-opener for people because a lot, especially at a place like the University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton School, it's very high achievement, sort of elite educational thing, and people have been working very hard their whole lives to get here. And I come along and I say to them, well, it's wonderful that you're here. Whose idea was it? And how much of this is your plan and how much of it is someone else's plan? And you see the look in people's eyes when they achieve something that they were supposed to achieve. They got into graduate school, or they got a job that everybody wanted, they thought they should have. But then internally, they don't feel a great sense of accomplishment or satisfaction. And that's when you know that you've been living someone else's life. You've been working based on either cultural assumptions about what success means, and so you've been, striving as hard as possible to, be someone that would be in the newspaper or someone that would, have an interview on television, or you've been working very hard to achieve a family expectation of success. Everybody said, you're not a success unless you're a doctor, or you're not a success unless you're a lawyer or a business person. And then you get it, and you feel empty, or you don't get it, and you feel like a failure. And in neither case is that feeling warranted, because you never did the job of setting the goals yourself. So the lottery exercise is really designed to help people get past the basic expectation-based thoughts of success and start digging into what they themselves might think. And it goes really simply like this. Assume that you've won a major lottery, that $200 million is now in your bank account. Assume that you've taken care of your family, all the things that you would normally do if you had come into great wealth, and you set up a trust fund to make sure your kids get educated, or your nephews or nieces and the people you love. So you've done all the things that duty and love would require you to do for those that are close to you. Now, what would you do next? And would you want to be an entrepreneur? Would you use your money to start up businesses? Would you want to be a philanthropist and use your money to help fund healthcare in the developing world or in your neighborhood? Would you want to teach? A lot of people that I meet who are at really, very successful places in the achievement sense come to me and they say, Richard, is there a chance that I could teach? I feel like that would bring me more satisfaction than getting another paycheck from my law firm or my business. So when you ask that question honestly, what would you do? And think about it, and don't just give one answer. Think about it today, talk to people, think about it tomorrow. That often can reveal to you something about the direction you ought to be taking, even without the lottery. All of us have bills to pay, so we have to, the lottery's a fantasy, but nevertheless, some part of our day can be devoted to doing something we find meaningful and that, would give us a sense of greater fulfillment or satisfaction. And that lottery exercise gives you a chance to experiment a little with something you might probably be able to do starting tomorrow, in terms of, thinking about starting a business, or finding a way to mentor or teach people, or reach out to help people in some way that is in your local community. So that's a way to begin defining success for yourself, both the respect you'll get for doing something well and the satisfaction you'll get from doing it.
I'm familiar with the Venn diagram that you lay out in Chapter 4, I think it is. You've got the one circle is the things that you're good at. Another circle is things that you're passionate about. The third circle is what is it people will reward you for, and then sort of where they all three intersect is where you find the meaningful work. And you've developed this acronym that you lay out in that chapter for the 7 foundations of meaningful work. Can you take a moment or two and briefly describe each of those for us?
Absolutely. I'd love to. That intersection comes from a book that many of your listeners may be familiar with. I mean, it's an adaptation of Jim Collins's work in Good to Great. It's a great business book, and those same 3 circles can help a business find the sweet spot where they're going to create the most value. In a personal life, in the sense of meaningful work, the acronym I use to sort of help people begin thinking about where they might find meaning in their work is the acronym PERFECT, PERFECT. And so if you're searching for perfect work, it means you're probably looking for work that would have some dimensions that these letters stand for. So the P stands for personal learning and development. A lot of people find meaning in their work because it allows them to grow as a person and learn more about the world, themselves, and others. The E stands for entrepreneurial independence and a sense of autonomy and control. And a lot of people find meaning in their work because they're able to do it themselves, to have control over it, to see the beginning, the middle, and the end of a project. Steve Jobs is very much in that mode. A lot of entrepreneurs are. So you can find meaning in your work by gaining more autonomy over some part of it. The R stands for religious commitment. A lot of people find meaning through the aspects of their religion that they're able to implement through their work and their interactions with others. So you don't have to be doing religious work to be able to live the commandments of your faith in a deep and meaningful way in your work environment. And a lot of people are able to generate meaning in their work by connecting the religious and the workday environment. That's PER. And then F is for family. Many people find a great deal of meaning in the pride they take in being providers for their family, in being able to support and advance the goals of their children and their spouse. And almost any kind of work that's honorable can provide meaning when you think about it as a means for playing the role that your family needs you to play. So that's the F. And then the last 3, ECT, so PERFECT. E is expressiveness. People have needs to be expressive. It could be in art, it could be in design, it could be in writing. Self-expression is a tremendous way to gain meaning in your work. And again, Steve Jobs, another example, he was a great designer of technology and expressed his own aesthetic by the way he spec'd out products, and I think he got a lot of meaning out of his work that way. C is for community and service. So, again, if you're working in any kind of service environment, whether it's in a hospital, in a social work and education, in community, a lot of people get tremendous amounts of feelings of self-worth and meaning from their ability to help others. And then finally, T, the last one, is talent-based excellence. So there's actually a guy at MIT that I have for this model. He's an engineer, and he said, hey, finding meaning at work is not about identifying meaning and then go doing it. It's actually becoming excellent at something, and then that excellence provides you with the foundation for finding meaning in what you do. And I think that's a perfectly sound approach. If you get really, really good at something and people start respecting you for it and you're able to mentor and teach others at it, then I think you can find meaning in your work by the excellence that you display in the way in which you do it and how you help others. So I think each of those can be independent foundations, but I think many people patch together more than one. You can be motivated and find meaning from being an expressive person who's providing for their family and who's the best at what they do in their group. And all those will be renewal sources for you to want to wake up, to be excited about going to work, and to make meaning out of the work that you do.
That question was really a test to see if you'd actually remember all those. Yeah, I didn't figure you'd have a problem with that at all. You got an A+, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
You say in Chapter 5 that success starts with that thing you do better than most, and you say that success often comes from building on what you already know and know how to do. So why then do you think that figuring it all out for ourselves is so hard?
Well, that's fascinating. Great question. You know, if you go into a room of people and they're all standing around, at a social occasion, most people look around the room and go, wow, look at all these other people. They're so successful. They look so confident. They look so... Me, I'm just a miserable, unconfident, poor soul over here, lost. I hope someone will find a minute to talk to me. Who am I? So I think, for the most part, people undersell what they already have. And they look at what they don't have and say, if only I had that, that would then solve my problem. And I think the real success in life comes from looking in your own backyard and saying, hey, you know what? All those people who are good at something, they're good at something because they had an aptitude for it. And they discovered that aptitude and they nurtured that aptitude. They found role models and people to help teach them bring out that aptitude. And they spent time on it. They were willing to go out and practice it and fail at it and go back and practice some more. It just has to be true that your talents are internal. They're from your genes, they're from your family, they're from early role models that you had in life that gave you a sense of excitement and a feeling of accomplishment when you're able to achieve certain things. And that's where you need to look to start the journey of becoming excellent at whatever you're going to do next. I mean, I'm a big believer in learning, and when I started teaching at the Wharton School, I'd never taught before. And I was terrified, and I didn't know if I'd be any good at it. And the first thing I did was go watch some great teachers teach just to feel how they were doing it. And then I took my own first hesitant steps, and the first time it didn't work out so well. But now, I've one of the few people who's won the teaching award here at Wharton in every division. And I love doing it, and it's my calling in life. I really feel like I'm alive the most when I'm in front of a group of people and I'm trying to help them learn something. And it all came from I had an aptitude. I was raised in the military. That meant we moved every single year. I was alive from 1st to 8th grade. I had to adjust socially very rapidly to my environment as a result of that. I learned how to pick up cues from people. That's a teaching skill. Someone else taught me how to tell a story. That's a teaching skill. I had aptitudes, but I had to, go out and take some chances to explore them and bring them out. So, but it definitely starts inside. And even if you don't have a psychologist that can sit around and tell you, well, this is your aptitude and that's your aptitude, you do have your own discernment of what you enjoy, of what gives you energy instead of taking it away. And make notes. Take a week and just take notes. What parts of my day energized me? And then start patching together the profile of what kind of work might allow me to patch these things together. And if you can eliminate status from your criteria and just look at functions, you may find that there's a story I tell in the book of a guy who has a Harvard MBA. He's found his life's calling as a police detective and just threw away a business career that he could have easily had based on his accomplishments and his education. But he gains a tremendous satisfaction by piecing together the bits of his personality that being a police officer allows him to use every day to help people, to accomplish a sense of justice, to put the bad guys in jail, to experience the excitement of danger. All those things are part of a police officer's life, but they're not part of a business consultant's life, and that's what he was doing before. So that discernment, that listening to yourself, can often really be the best source for what you're going to be the best at.
The second half of the book explores motivation, and specifically motivational balance between what you call inner satisfaction and the outer rewards. Contrast those two for us, if you would, and why they're both important.
Sure. There's a lot of books about success these days, and I've read almost all of them. That's part of what you get to do when you're a professor. Mm-hmm. And the rage these days is do what you love. And I've been talking about that to an extent. And I think that's crucial, and that's called intrinsic motivation. That is, things you do because you want to do them. They're not because of what you get paid. They're not because of how famous you'll get. You're absorbed when you're doing those things, and that intrinsic motivation is what I call the long-term fuel. If you can find things that allow you to be intrinsically motivated, you're going to want to do them every day. You're going to want to learn more. But I think there's another side to motivation that these recent books do sell short, and that is extrinsic motivation. And extrinsic motivation is the rewards you get for doing something. The reward may be financial, it may be recognition, it may be a competition where you get to win something or feel like you came in first. And the extrinsic motivation, which if it's overdone is a death trap, because you're just on a little wheel like a hamster running trying to get the reward. But if you use it right, it's like turbocharging. So you've got a good fuel, you've got a good car, you can stay on the road for a long time, but now you need to charge it up for a sprint. And extrinsic motivation is an excellent source of energy for that. That's why athletes love to be in championship games. That's why businesses love to try to win a contest for selling the most or being the best in their industry. It charges people up. It gives them focus. It gives them a sense of excitement, and it's temporary, but it is really hard-charging form of energy to use if you use it right. So I think the two together are why we got to the moon. They're why the iPhone is a very amazing product. The people that did it were engineers who were intrinsically motivated by the elegance of what they were doing, but they were in a competitive race to create a new instrument to make phone calls on that was up against a global market, and they won that race, and they got it out sooner, better, and more reliably because of the extrinsic motivation. So I think in your personal life, I think there's a role for both, and I think balancing them is the secret to getting a lot more done, and as well as sustaining the effort that you have.
I so identified with, kind of unfortunately, though it did have a happy ending, with the story in Chapter 7 of a former student named Linda and how she suffered from self-handicapping. Talk about what that is and these two kinds of self-confidence you call Level 1 confidence and Level 2 confidence.
Sure. One of the most important things successful people know about is how to fail. And I think very often the fear of failure is what keeps people from taking the most important steps toward their own success. Self-handicapping is an affliction that occurs when primarily young people are praised too much for being something instead of for what they've done. And the research from Carol Dweck out at Stanford, she's a psychologist, underlies this in a very important way. If you have a child and you praise them for being smart all the time, oh, you're so smart. Oh, look, you're so clever. You're so smart. Some children, not all, but some children will begin to internalize that in a way that causes them to become afraid to put that label to the test. And so they start doing things so that they avoid ever being revealed to be the unsmart person they're afraid they might be.
You just described me.
Well, I think you must have overcome it because you're doing okay now. But that means they start doing self-sabotaging things. They stay up all night before the test, and then when they take the test, they're too sleepy to perform well, or they get distracted by a television show or Facebook or something before some important event, and so then when they fail the next day, they can say, "Oh well, I could have succeeded, but I was watching TV," or "I could have succeeded, but I stayed up all night and I got sleepy, so I couldn't do my best." And it just goes around and around and around. And of course, that's a prescription for two things: one, mediocrity, because you never perform as your best, and two, complete lack of courage to take any risks, because the biggest thing you're afraid of is being revealed to be a failure. So you never take any risks, so you don't take that chance. So learning to fail means learning to pay more attention to the process of learning and less attention to the outcome. It means being willing to take failure as an educational data point and learn from it and not feel so devastated by it, and turn it around so that it works for you. And I use an example of Rory McIlroy, the great golfer, who in one golf tournament a couple years ago had the biggest collapse in the history of golf. In the last 9 holes, he went from being something like 7 strokes ahead to losing the match because he just fell apart in the last 9 holes. And this guy's only 21 years old. This is a devastating loss. They interviewed him afterwards, and he said, I learned some really important lessons in what happened to me today, and I hope to put them to use. And in the very next tournament, he went out to the PGA Open, which is just about to run right now, and he won it. And that's learning to fail, because you wouldn't blame him for going into a cave after that monumental loss and just, and saying, this is it, I've just completely lost my self-confidence. But instead, he went back and said, what can I learn from that? And then use it next time out, and he did. Those negative emotions that you mentioned earlier are what come into play here. We should never be afraid to feel fear. We should never be afraid to feel dissatisfaction. Those are the signals that sometimes are telling us we need to watch out for this. We can do better than this. We're dissatisfied with this. We need to improve, or we need to get out of a relationship that doesn't work. We need to change jobs if we can as soon as possible because we have a psychopath for a boss. And not being willing to feel those negative emotions often will keep you in a place that is holding you back. So it's like everything else, a little balance. Positive emotions, incredibly important because they help you feel optimistic about the future. But negative emotions and dissatisfaction, great motivators to tell you that you need to change direction.
A couple of questions in a moment I want to get to apart from the book, but already we've covered material in 7 of the 9 chapters, but as I like to tell a lot of my guests, we want to leave them wanting more.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, we'll wrap up the book conversation there, but before we do, anything else you'd like others to know about the book or the last 2 chapters that we haven't had a chance to hit on?
I think the last couple of chapters, I touch on social skills and the importance of being able to relate to other people, and I think that's of course a subject on which I've written a couple of other books. So I think it's just one more myth about success that I try to explore in that chapter that's worth noting, and that is that most people think, well, social skills, how to win friends and influence people. Okay, well, you have to be glib, you have to be socially smooth to be successful, and I totally disagree. I think you have to be yourself. The most important thing you bring to a social interaction that's going to help you succeed is your credibility. And credibility doesn't come from glibness and smoothness. Credibility comes from what have you accomplished. It comes from whether you're trustworthy and reliable. And it comes from how much you know and can talk about with respect to the subject and add value by bringing new ideas. So I think people should recognize that all different kinds of social people, people with all different levels of social skills can be very successful. The most important thing is to recognize what your social type is and then use it effectively and build on your credibility. So I think that's worth mentioning. Just the final point is that my hope in writing this book and my hope in all my teaching is not to tell people what success is or to tell them to follow my example. My entire purpose is to help people think for themselves about what their goals should be and what their talents are. So I hope the book is able to reach out to people and provide that service to them.
Well, another reason I paused after 7 chapters was because that's how far I've read into the book.
Okay. Well, I hope that doesn't mean it took too long to read, but I tried to tell a lot of stories, so the book keeps moving along. So give it a lot of examples.
I love it, and I just picked it up last week. Thank you to Whitney, your publicist, who, by the way, is fantastic.
I love Whitney.
Really enjoy interacting with her. But yes, I am loving the book, so I highly recommend it. This show, this podcast, is based on the belief that intentional and consistent reading is key to success in business and in life. And one of the mantras I often recite is leaders read and readers lead. So to that, what would you say is the single most important leadership lesson you've ever learned?
Wow. You have a great job. You get to ask these really, really interesting and impossible questions. As a I think I learned the most important leadership lesson of my life from my father. He was a Marine general and he was a leader of men, and we did break over the Vietnam War, but we reconciled later, and I then was able to look back and realize how much I had learned from him and the way that he conducted himself. And I'll just give you 2 quick lessons that I take from his life. One is he said, as a leader, he said, never ask your people to do anything that you either haven't already done or wouldn't do first. And I think that that's something a lot of our leaders today have forgotten. They ask other people to do the impossible. They themselves would never go near it. But they expect others to go and do it. And I think leaders ought to internalize what it is that they've asked others to do and go there first and show the courage to do it. So I teach a lot of Navy SEALs, a lot of people in special operations, and that's one of the lessons that they exhibit in the way they conduct themselves. And I think it's crucial. The other is that your success as a leader will come from the trust others put in you. And my dad, when I was about 10 or 11 years old, used to take me out every New Year's Eve. He had retired from the Marines and become the superintendent, the president of the Virginia Military Institute down in Lexington, Virginia. So that's where I was in sort of middle school. And on New Year's Eve, he would take me out every year while I was in that age, 10, 11, 12, 13. And he had homemade a bourbon-laced eggnog that he made every Christmas season. And he would get some mason jars and put this eggnog in it and wrap it up with a ribbon and put them in a box and put me in the car. And we would drive all around the VMI base where the school was located on New Year's Eve. And I would run in and give a jar of this eggnog to every single man or woman that was working that night. And my dad would wait from the car. I would hand off the eggnog. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I've come to realize that that's what leadership really is about. It's about caring about people that other people don't notice and recognizing them. So this all came home to me just last October because I was down in Lexington, Virginia again, and I was very proud to be at a ceremony where they had just dedicated and named a building with his name on it. And I can't help but believe that the reason they did that was not because he was a famous general, but because that's the way he treated people, and everybody at that college knew it.
Wow. Name for us, if you would, Richard, 2 books from the recent past that have made the greatest impression on you and why.
Well, I have to, the inspiration for everything I've written is a book by a psychologist named Robert Cialdini, Cialdini. He's a psychologist out at Arizona State. And the book is called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. And I think it's the best book about human interaction from a psychologist ever. It's readable, it's true, it's reliable, it can guide you in everything from marketing to leadership. Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. And wow, the other sources of inspiration that I always come back to are the great texts of our culture. So I've read the Bible from beginning to end. I read it while I lived in Israel and went to the places where the events took place that the Bible talks about. And I don't consider myself a Christian per se. I don't belong to a church, but I think of all the religions in the world, the Christians and the Jews have the best book. So as a matter of inspiration, as a matter of values, as a matter of storytelling, it's hard to beat the Bible, and I go back to it often. So I guess I'll rest my case on the Bible.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we'll include all the resources and links we talked about in the show notes for today's episode. Finally, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you? Website, social media, and share, if you want to, anything you're working on that's coming up that you might want folks to know about.
Sure. Well, the best way to just get more information about me is my website. So that's grichardsschell.com. So G, just the letter G, Richard, the name like Richard the Lionhearted, and Shell, S-H-E-L-L, all together, grichardsschell.com. And it has information on all my other books. It actually has the 6 Lives exercise on there. So people want to take that, they can do it online and get a taste, as well as a little biography and how to contact me. So that's probably the easiest way to do that. I'm in the middle of going out with a lot of different publicity and talks about Springboard. So that'll be coming up in the next year as I travel around the country and talk to different groups about what success means to them. And so people might expect to hear from me a little bit on that. And I'm working on another book, which is the professor's lot in life. The next book, I think, is going to be called Believing in Yourself, The Foundations of Confidence. And I expect to be bringing together research on the nature of beliefs and the nature of the self, and talking about what it actually means to believe in yourself and what that entails and how it relates to the feelings that we have when we're feeling self-confident. So that's the next project.
I will be first in line to buy that one.
Great. I'll let you know.
Well, the new book is Springboard, Launching Your Personal Search for Success. This conversation being published on August the 20th, so that means the book is out right now. Been out for 5 days, so get it. I highly recommend it. Richard, thank you so much for being our guest today on the Read to Lead podcast.
Jeff, it's been a real pleasure. I really enjoyed this, and I wish you the very best.
The book, once again, is Springboard, Launching Your Personal Search for Success by G. Richard Schell. It's available for free from Audible. Just go to readtoleadpodcast.com/audible. There you can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get your free download. I suggest Springboard this week. Thank you, Richard, for being our guest. To comment on today's episode, go to readtoleadpodcast.com/008 for episode 8. Just scroll down to the bottom of the post to leave your comment. If you enjoy the show, it would mean a lot if you would rate the podcast in iTunes. And now this helps ensure others have a better chance of finding it. It helps keep it, too, in the new and noteworthy section for these brief 8 weeks that we have to be there. And if you give it a 5-star rating and leave a review, I'll be sure and mention you by name in an upcoming episode as a small way of saying thanks. Speaking of which, thank you to AKT Martin, Alex, Scott Barlow, and Connie Kottman for their 5-star reviews. To rate and review the podcast, just go to readtoleadpodcast.com/iTunes. That's readtoleadpodcast.com/iTunes. Well, next time on the show, our guest will be Ken Siegel, author of the New York Times best-selling book, Insanely Simple, The Obsession That Drives Apple's Success. And he'll help us learn how to apply those principles to your business. That's all for this week. I hope to see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to the Read to Lead podcast. As a subscriber, we challenge you to be more than just a passive listener. Become a vital member of the community. Visit us on the web at readtoleadpodcast.com and chat with other members at facebook.com/readtoleadnation. Until next time, remember, leaders read and readers lead.